Hi everyone, I'm Julie Boudwin with TigerDetails, joined here with TigerDetails publisher James Smith. Jimmy, obviously, we waited a long time for LSU to get back on the field and was not the performance that LSU fans were hoping for. It's not the performance we were expecting to see. They obviously dropped the season opener to Mississippi State 44-34, snapped the 16-game winning streak. Just a lot of things to talk about. I know you have a lot of things on your mind, so I'm going to just let you take it away. What were some of your initial first reactions to this game?
Yeah, I mean, unlike last year, the hype and things we heard coming from Coach Orgeron and the staff leading up to the season didn't match what we saw on the field.
Right.
And, I mean, on both sides of the ball, this team just wasn't clicking. And there were some evident holes in the roster coming into the game. Of course, loss of Stingley prior to the game, things like that certainly didn't help. But it was evident that this team has some holes within it. And a lot of those could be personnel based. I mean, it's early in the season. There's a lot to tell here, but I mean, there's some positives to take from it, but very few.
Right.
Now, I do think they went up against an underrated Mississippi State team. And perhaps we were looking at an overrated LSU team, and this was the end result.
Right. What was your initial reactions to Miles Brennan? Obviously, he came out, looked very rusty, looked very almost lacking confidence, looked a little better in the second half. The offensive line obviously was not helping him tonight. So, what's your initial reactions to Miles this first game?
I mean, look, LSU's offensive line as a unit was rewarded with a lot of awards last year, and they kept Joe Burrow's game was his ability to make pre-snap reads, get the ball out quickly, move and buy time in the pocket, and make plays downfield when he needed to. We didn't see any of that from Miles Brennan today. We just didn't. There were very few times where it looked like Miles knew exactly where he wanted to go pre-snap.
Right.
There were a lot of times where it looked hesitant. I mean, these windows are small. These windows aren't that big. And some of these throws you have to anticipate. Some of these throws you just have to squeeze into tight windows. And there were a lot of instances today, a lot of the unsuccessful pass plays, quick read options there that he just wasn't noticing, wasn't picking up, or was reluctant and hesitant to pull the trigger, or was late. So he's a guy that hasn't started a football game in quite some time, or a guy that didn't have spring football. But this is mostly the same offense they had last year. I mean, he was in this system. And so I expected to definitely see more from Miles Brennan today, and I think everyone was rather disappointed.
Obviously, on the defensive side of things, they gave up a lot of yards to KJ Costello. It really didn't look like DBU out there today. What were your initial reactions to what you saw on the defensive side of the ball? And obviously, you mentioned Derek Stingley, who was hospitalized last night for an illness, and he would have played a big role in this, taking away one side of that field. But I mean, we can't just say, oh, it's because Derek Stingley's not on the field. There were a lot of issues going on the defensive side of the ball today as well.
Yeah, there were really two I saw develop in the secondary and in the back seven that I think Mississippi State was able to attack all day. LSU looked like they were doing a lot of switching and zone coverage, converting it to man and so on. You pick up the releases, and it looked like there were some holes there in communications where safeties were supposed to come down and pick somebody up, or inside slot corners were supposed to switch off and didn't carry the receiver too far across the field. And it just created these holes in these zone coverages. So then LSU had to really dive into a lot of man coverage. Well, Jay Ward and Elias Ricks, great football players, don't have a ton of foot speed. And so what Mike Leach did was he knew he had advantages in that department. And so he started hitting his guys with deep crossers, allowing them to create that separation and run away from the defenders. And then when they were in press coverage, you beat them at the line of scrimmage. If you beat a guy that doesn't have the speed to recover at the line of scrimmage and bump and run coverage, you're in real trouble. And there were multiple ends today where the defensive back notably at the end of the game, just didn't get their hands on the receiver at the line of scrimmage and didn't have the speed to make up for it. So there's some holes in that secondary and some things they need to improve on. If they want to run more zone coverage, which it looks like they want to, they're going to have to be better at those switching off and things of that nature. And I mean, if they want to play man coverage, they're going to need to get Stingley and Flott healthy and his mind back into the game, because they don't have the foot speed with some of the other guys to keep up with the speed of the receivers in the SEC.
Right. You mentioned, we didn't see spring practice. We didn't see a spring game. We didn't see fall camp. I mean, obviously LSU sent media small snippets, mostly, stretching, warm-ups, that kind of stuff. So a lot of our predictions were going off of what we were hearing. Obviously Coach O said last week, the defense looked better at this point in this year than it did all of last season. Obviously that didn't really show tonight. But is there anything from this game that you see, because obviously you break down games much differently than everybody else, but is there something that you see from this game where you're like, okay, well, this is an easy fix, or this is going to get better by next week? Is there some easy fixes, I guess, out there? So, something that can maybe give fans something to look forward to for next week.
Yeah, I think there's some definite positives here. One would be with guys stepping in that maybe you didn't expect to play as well as they did today, like an Ali Gay. Right now, it looks like LSU might have an impact player. Yeah, he played extremely well today, so that was certainly a bright spot. You think when you add in, when you get Glenn Logan back and add more depth to that defensive line with Ali Gay on the edge, that's promising looking forward. And like I said earlier, a lot of the throws, a lot of the missed opportunities in the passing game, there were throws there to be had, and there were throws there to be made. This is a guy that hasn't played football in a little while. You would expect him to improve. I certainly do. Right. They're going to go back to the film. And if Miles Brennan just starts taking what's in front of him and then making plays when those things are taken away, he'll be far more successful than what we saw today, which was a guy trying to push the ball downfield, passing up on some of his quicker reads and holding on to the ball too long. So I'm sure they're going to improve in that regard. There were certainly open receivers today. They can catch the ball better. I expect them to catch the ball better. I don't expect a lot of big drops in big key situations today, all the way to the end of the game.
Last year, we did not see drops from this wide receiver unit.
Yeah, and I mean, look, last year you had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and you also, and I don't think there's a drop off from wide receiver coaching that Joe Brady's not there, but he assisted with the receivers. So there's a lot of changes in that group as a whole that they're probably trying to get used to. And Terrace Marshall had some drops last year, and some of that continued this year. He had a really good game otherwise.
Right.
They seemed to lose confidence in Kayshon Boutte really early in the game. I saw him short arm a ball over the middle and things of that nature. So they kind of removed him from the lineup at some point, or the rotation, and seemed to get Jeray Jenkins more involved. So it'll be interesting to see how that rotation works moving forward. But there's some positives there. Eric Gilbert played well. And so, I mean, I think this is going to be a good football team, but I certainly expected to see more from them today.
Absolutely. I mean, week one, a weird off season. Like I said, no spring ball, weird camp. I mean, I expected to see rust. I didn't expect to see this much rust, but you always make your most improvements from week one to week two. So I do think they'll get, watch the film, they'll make the improvements. But quick last thing before we wrap this up. Who would you say were your impact players? I mean, obviously we mentioned Ali Gay, who was incredible. Jacoby Stevens, showing why he's wearing the 7 jersey. And then Jabril Cox was the other one for me who stood out. Like, he was everything that we kept hearing, But who would be some of your impact players?
Yeah, I really those three definitely stand out for me as well. Other than the missed tackle, Todd Harris, which was a huge play on the sideline. To give up that big touchdown, I thought he played fairly well. I thought it was promising for LSU to see Joseph Evans step in and give that many quality reps. Only a few weeks removed from playing offensive guard. Right. He would be a guy that I think would grade it out fairly well. Jeray Jenkins, when his number was called today, he really made some plays. And really, I think when everybody goes back and looks at this film, the offensive line, I thought as a whole, played a lot better than maybe the stat sheet would show. I think half of those sacks, if not more, might have been on Brennan today. So I think those three standouts you named, Jabril Cox, certainly. Um, Ali Gay was sensational. I mean, those two really stood out for me today.
All right. Well, I mean, it's going to be a really busy week. Should be really interesting to see what coach and players have to say after losing this one. It's been a while since LSU's lost a season opener at home, I believe, but they'll be back in action next week. I think they're at Vanderbilt next week. So it should be a real interesting week. Make sure you guys stay tuned to Tiger Details for all the latest information. We'll catch you there.